Dr. Lynn. For those who are watching through the miracle of the internet, glad to have you here. And for those who are here live, glad to have you here too. So, it's interesting when I do a class like this, sometimes God has a way of a sense of humor. I'm teaching a class on allergies, and I think I'm wrestling with a little bit of it myself right now. I did some excessive work this weekend, got run down. And so here I am talking this raspy. So I hope I sound okay. I hope my voice doesn't fail, but most of the stuff I'm going to share with you is actually available in the slide format. So even if I kind of fade out towards the end, you'll be able to read this later. But anyway, this is a class I did with Dr. Paul about a year or two ago, and we really thought this class was relevant because we were kind of coming out of COVID, and people had realized that they were like, oh, guess what? My immune system actually can work and do stuff like this, but I still have this lingering issue, and maybe experiencing COVID changed how they responded to certain things because it did change our immunity to some degree. So we thought it was time to address this and address it from the most natural perspective that we can, because everybody's waiting for the next miracle drug breakthrough. Everybody's making for the next whatever it may be. And in reality, your body has the capability of dealing with almost anything that comes across. The thing is, we want to make sure that you know how to do that. Like just to say you have an immune system is good, but how are you caring for it, right? And so if you understand chiropractors, we study the exact same human body that medical doctors do too. We go through all the stuff, but we actually rather than focus on outside in things, which would be drugs or surgery, we try to help the body get what it needs from the inside out. So if you know how to build an immune system that's strong, that can regulate itself and detect what it's supposed to fight and not overreact to things it shouldn't, then you're going to be a very healthy, happy person, and you'll be walking around with red eyes and sniffing things and Kleenexes on your hands. You guys can be very healthy and do well. In fact, I will tell you one thing that was amazing to me that came out of the whole thing with COVID was the fact that your exercise habits will influence your immunity. They were actually doing a study in South Korea when COVID struck, and they were looking at lots of monitoring people's health habits. So they were coming in once a year, huge study, like 90-some thousand people. So this is a very huge sample size. And one of the questions they asked them was, how often do you exercise per week? And it was self-reported, right? So there was a category for people who exercise 0 minutes a week. They literally got no activity whatsoever except to get out of bed, walk to their car, walk to their desk, back home, and sit down again, right? There's people who exercise 30 minutes a week, 30 to 60, 60 to 90, 90 to 120, 120 to 150, and then there's 150 and above. So if you're exercising 150 minutes a week, that's basically 30 minutes for five times a week, right? 5 times 30 is 150, last time I checked in math, okay? What they looked at was how, in those groups, were those people getting sick from COVID in different ways? Like how often were they getting it? How would they get sick? Number two, did they need hospitalization? Did they need intubation? And lastly, did they die? And that'd be the worst possible outcome. And what they showed was there was an inverse relationship between, the sickness part of it and actually your activity. So if you were a low exerciser, you actually were the highest probability of actually getting sick, needing to go to the hospital, needing to have ventilation put in, and actually dying from the illness. On the other hand, if you were exercising 150 minutes a week or more, you had the lowest risk of getting sick, the lowest risk of actually needing to be hospitalized, the lowest risk of actually needing ventilation, the lowest risk of dying. And they said it's almost like it's an inverse relationship. So as one goes up, then one goes down. More minutes in exercise means fewer hospitalizations. And they looked at it and they came up with a theory about why that was. And they said one of the things is that when you are out in the environment and being exposed to all manner of things that are blowing around, from the trees, from the ground, what they said was that those people who are actually out in the environment the most are good at immunosurveillance. And when you think of surveillance, what do you think of? Like having cameras up around checking the environment, right? Well, your immune system gets really smart and wise about actually how it's supposed to do its thing, where it's going to recognize this is pollen. This only merits a small response for me. This, on the other hand, is streptococcus, whatever. This could actually cause infection. I need to react to that strongly and kill it before it gets inside my body, right? This is pet dander. I don't need to respond to that very strongly. This is a virus. This is COVID flying. I need to react to that strongly and kill it. So your immune system gets smarter if you use it properly. And there's lots of ways we're going to cover in this class to make your immune system better. So if you are at the right workshop, if you believe that it's better to be healthy, actively caring for your health, looking for natural solutions, trying to address root causes, and taking practical information and applying it and being inspired bold action versus being unhealthy, neglecting your health, using man-made solutions, which typically have more side effects, treating effects, not causes, you making it head knowledge only. Probably the most miserable people we ever have in a spinal workshop are those who get very smart but never apply it, because they're just going to say the same, and now they know they could be better, but they're not. And of course, just trying to motivate people, lighting a fire in them all the time versus lighting a fire inside of them. and actually taking weekend actions. That's what you don't want to be. So if you're in this column, congratulations, this is all for you. If you're over here, good news is you can change, all right? So seasonal allergies are definitely a problem. They say approximately 25 million Americans are affected by them, so that's at least 10% of us, probably even more than that. It's also referred to as hay fever or allergic rhinitis. World estimates are that right now, during the COVID epidemic, we were spending about $25 billion on that, and in the next coming 7 years, it might grow by as much as, what is that, another 15 billion. So that's the wrong trend, I think. It's one thing if we actually find better solutions that have fewer side effects, but if more and more people are actually having allergies, that's not proportionate to our population growth, then something's wrong. And actually, sadly, the American lifestyle tends to promote allergies. Those things. This is amazing. Drugs that are used to treat seasonal allergies can be a big problem too. Many of the drugs that you would take to actually block the reactions that your body starts to produce all this, running nose and the inflammation and so forth are anticholinergic drugs. They actually block the neurotransmitter acetylcholine too. That's the problem. Acetylcholine is one of the main ways that your brain cells talk to each other. So if you're suppressing it in your nose, it's also suppressing it in your brain. You can't just take this drug and magically have it target your nose. Well, the problem is that antihistamines, that normal dose can actually affect you in such a way that you actually would be like if you were driving with a 0.08 blood alcohol level, which is you're drowsy and impaired. And people who actually suffer from Alzheimer's disease or dementia typically have marked shortages of acetylcholine in their brains to begin with. And here's a JAMA, April 2016. The use of anticholinergic medication amongst older adults is associated with increased brain atrophy and dysfunction and clinical decline. That means your brain actually shrinks taking these drugs. Thus, the use of anticholinergic medication amongst older adults should likely be discouraged if alternative therapies are available. Well, guess what? Alternative therapies are available, right? It's easy to go into a store and buy a drug, but there's a saying that goes, easy choices, hard results, hard choices, easy results. The easy result is just easy choice is to go and just take a drug like this, but unfortunately, the downside is that your brain starts to shrink. You start to lose your gray matter. So how do allergies develop? Well, it's a body's developed reaction to something that's considered to be an irritant or an allergen. They're a sign that your immune system is actually working overtime. So when you have something coming into your system, for example, here's ragweed pollen that comes in. We have these things in our immune system that are called B cells, and they create something called, it becomes a plasma cell, and it creates something called immunoglobulin E. If you're going to go in and be tested by an allergist, one thing they're going to check to see is what are your IgE levels, because they can tell if you actually have a high level of those things. Well, they go and attach themselves to a mast cell, and the mast cell is what actually does this thing. Basically, it's the histamine and so forth. They're inflammatory things which create the symptoms of runny nose, redness of the eyes, and so forth. And so this triggers a cascade of symptoms that we associate with allergies: sneezing, runny nose, sore throat, hacking cough, and itchy eyes. These mast cells are activated by things such as, and you know these things, right? The top ones you probably know about already: pollen, mold, spores, dust mites, airborne contaminants seen floating around, but also pet dander, cockroaches are notoriously bad, environmental chemicals, personal care products, and foods. We have a family we care for that lives extremely naturally. These people have really just got down to the real nitty-gritty of eating in a very holistic way, but they know their kids are going to have typical reactions when they start doing the crop testing. They come over and spray all the fields, first of all, for fertilizers and anti-weed stuff, and then their kids actually have these reactions. So the allergic response looks like this. Here's the antibodies coming in and docking themselves in the cell. The allergen comes in, activates all the stuff, and sure enough, there comes histamine into your system, and that's what creates all those side effects we don't enjoy so much. So how can we actually help our bodies avoid this allergic response? Well, you can try to avoid allergens at all costs. You could walk around all day in a hazmat suit, have triple filtered air, right? That's one possibility. But we can also actually maybe develop our immune systems to make it stronger. That might be a better way to go. And I'm going to try and talk to you about the ways that we can do that so that we don't have to walk around in a suit like this. Okay. By the way, there's a joke about this that goes that if you're a single person and you're walking around trying to find Mr. or Mrs. Right, if you come across somebody who actually has a white suit on with a bit of a netting on there and they're covered in pollen, that's the one, because they're a keeper. That's a silly joke. Okay. All right. So if we're going to help you build your health, we have this pyramid of health, the vital needs. You actually have to have all these things, but it's in a specific order. Nourishment, we can't live without food for about somewhere in the ballpark of 2 to 3 months. Now, somebody very famous fasted for 40 days and nights. That does happen, right? But at some point, the cells that you have there won't have the fuel or the repair mechanism built in, and you would waste away and die. So here's my question to you: does the quality of what we eat make a difference? Absolutely, right? Like, you think about putting up a building, we would never want to use the least quality cement or the cheapest wood like balsa wood. We're going to use good quality products to make sure it lasts. Well, If you're primarily fueling and building your body with refined foods that come in packages, they have long shelf lives, that's not great for us. On the other hand, if you're eating mostly fruits and vegetables, lean proteins, minimizing the processed food, it's a great thing. Water is even more important than nourishment, right? Water, you will die without water within about 3 to 7 days, depending how hot it is and how much you've got out there too. So that's even more important. Water helps us flush out toxins. It helps us cushion our joints. It keeps our blood running smooth and so forth. Well, what if you're primarily drinking carbonated things? They have caramel coloring in there with lots of high fructose corn syrup. Not so good, but a lot of people, I remember one guy hearing say he just hated the taste of water. So he just could consistently drink things that were not water, that were not good for him. So anyway, so that makes a difference. Now, oxygen is even more basic than water. You can live without oxygen maybe 5 to 7 minutes. That's be about it before you start actually having your cells and especially your brain die. Well, there are lots of people who are living in an oxygen-starved way, and they're actually not getting enough exercise to get oxygen to their tissues. They're sitting hunched at their computer, taking very shallow breaths, and all that sort of stuff. And then lastly, nerve supply is the most important thing. If you don't have nerve supply to a part of your body within that long, it's gone. Like literally, if I decapitated your head, there's no timing of this thing that we're just kind of hanging on. You are literally dead. So people who are walking around with subluxations in their nervous system actually have their nerve supply being starved too. So I think we're going to approach all these things. We're going to talk about them, what role they play. But the nerve supply is the most critical thing because that's how you can change a person's thing most readily. We're interested in helping you with all these things, and to the extent you want us to help you with them, we will help you do that. The problem is that we don't have the option of doing only one of them unless that's the only area of a problem. And if we do them in the wrong order, it may not be as helpful as well too. So, number one nutrition booster is going to be to reduce or eliminate sugar. Too much sugar is a real problem. The deleterious effects of sugar are this: they actually deplete your body of vitamin C because actually vitamin C and sugar use the same docking site on most of your cells. So if you're eating lots of sugar to get into your cells to be used for fuel, it's going to actually prevent vitamin C from going in the same way. Not so fun. It's like two cars trying to go into one tunnel. B vitamins are used to help process it. Magnesium, manganese, calcium, and zinc. They're going to be depleted if you have those things. Get too much sugar in there. Contributes to inflammation. When you're eating lots of sugar, your body's just more inflamed. Your pancreas is working overtime, and you have all this stuff going on. It creates a problem in the allergic response. So your A1C levels are a classic example of that. And then consumption tends to crowd out also whole foods from your diet, which do contain these essential nutrients for strong immunity. So let's say you're eating primarily candy bars. Well, after a while, you don't feel like eating, a salad anymore, or you have less room for it. That's the problem, is that those calories you're getting from those sources, as unsatisfying as they can be, they're crowding out the consumption of the foods. That's a real problem here. So sugar needs to be reduced or eliminated for sure. Number two, heal and seal your gut. If you actually have leaky gut syndrome, things are going to get into your bloodstream that should not get there, at least in the rate that they're coming in. Now, this is one of those things you have to be tested for. You can have some suspicions, though, if you actually have it, because if you tend to get lots of upset stomachs when you eat, if you just have lots of indigestion, if little things set you off and so forth, or just general malaise, you should be tested for it, because a lot of things such as having low hydrochloric acid, taking antibiotics, having infections, eating too much blood sugar up, all these things can weaken these. These are the junctions between the cells of your intestines. They're supposed to be nice tight junctions like this. If they become weakened and break through, then things go directly through to your bloodstream, and it causes a boom, a reaction that creates an immune reaction, and eventually a type of autoimmunity. So an unhealthy gut lowers your immune function. Leaky gut syndrome is commonly associated with local effects such as inflammatory bowel disease like Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, or celiac disease. But when leaky gut syndrome happens, when your gut lining has those gaps grow and become more numerous, so that undigested or unprocessed food and allergens enter your bloodstream directly, causing a far-reaching systemic allergic response. It isn't just like your gut's bad, your whole body gets that way. And so a lot of people who have this will actually have skin lesions. They'll actually have asthma trigger more easily. All those things just because their gut is actually healthy. There's some tests we can do for that. There's ways to actually help heal that too. Nutrition booster number 3, how to heal your gut. Eliminate offending foods that will tend to create or weaken your gut. So some of those things are wheat and gluten. Now, I think God made our bodies able to handle this stuff. The problem is that most of the gluten that we eat in this country, we get so much of it because we made these wheat husks that are extremely large, and almost every one of those have been sprayed by glyphosate, or commonly called Roundup. That thing tends to weaken our gut lining. It's not the gluten's problem, it's the once it's processed. Cow's milk some people can actually not digest cow's milk. That can be a real problem. Foods with high glyphosate residue like soy, oats, and corn That kills the good bacteria and changes your immune system so you can't process it well. Peanuts and eggs, again, on their own, fine foods, but the problem is those things may have been sensitized because of vaccines. People actually have had vaccines have had these proteins often injected in their bloodstreams directly. And so now you react to the response to your vaccine that you had years ago is coming because the same proteins are found in these things right here. Melons, bananas, tomatoes, zucchini, sunflower seeds, dandelions. That's a good one when you eat in salads. Chamomile and echinacea can actually mimic like ragweed, so those might be some things you want to avoid if you're really sensitized. Peaches, celery, tomatoes, melons, and oranges can mimic grass pollen, so sometimes people need to avoid those until they're healed. And then lastly, food with excessive omega-6 fatty acids, pro-inflammatory things. Basically, that category, think of your seed oils. So if you're eating things that are high in sunflower oil, safflower oil, corn oil, soybean oil, those kind of things are actually, or canola too. They're all things that promote inflammation in the gut. So those are things you might want to consider reducing until your gut actually is healed, and then eat them in a smaller amount once it is healed, okay? Nutrition booster number 4, how to heal your gut. Fruits and vegetables, fruits and vegetables other than the ones I mentioned before, contain vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients, and they actually provide what's called prebiotics. One of the best ones for this is okra. The gut bacteria that you have, the good ones that you have, need to have something to live on. They live on the cellulose, the fiber that's insoluble, that you actually consume. So eating high fiber foods is very good at that. Fermented foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, yogurt, and kombucha tea contain natural probiotics, great stuff there too. And then prebiotics, one thing that's there is it's called, oh goodness, butyrate, that's what it is. Butyrate is actually the main thing they live on. And so foods that are high in those is fantastic to eat there. Foods that are actually high in omega-3 fatty acids, so like wild salmon, sardines, and grass-fed meats. The difference between a cow that's eaten primarily grass during its life versus ones that have eaten corn is that the ones who have been fed grass are less inflammatory. They actually have omega-3s that ramp down your immune response. If you have a cow that's been fattened before going to market, they say they can only live on corn about 6 to 8 weeks or it actually would kill them. They are chock full of those fats that make us feel worse. The amino acid glutamine, colostrum, slippery elm bark, and then berberine, great things to help heal your gut. There are some products that are made by specific companies, one of which is Standard Process. I'll talk about them here in just a little bit. They have whole formulations that are designed to actually repair specific parts of your body. There's one for GI stability, lactic acid, yeast, gut flora complex. And there's a company we have here called NutriWest. I don't think we have it in stock right now, but it's called Total Leaky Gut, and everything you would need to repair your gut is in there. So if you'd like to be tested for those things, I actually have a survey that goes through the systems of the body. It doesn't say which ones they are. You have to answer the questions. And if you're showing signs of inflammation, you can actually ask for this for those who are watching at home. Ask for the Standard Process System Survey because it goes through the systems of the body. We can actually help you find out which ones are weakened and do things. This is one of the things we keep in stock all the time. I went to show it right here. Here it is, which I'll be taking home with me tonight. I forgot to take it this year. Allerplex is a formulation we love. For basically those people who are allergic to airborne grass and ragweed type pollens, Allerplex has, from Whole Foods, everything you need to boost your immunity. And I've had people who really have told me that they take this every spring and it cuts down their allergy response by about 80-90%. It's amazing. It's really good stuff. What you're doing is you're giving yourself an exposure to the things that build your immune system and things orally so that when you're exposed to it through the air, it's little or no consequence. Great stuff. We also have a product here called ProEnz, which if you're a person who tends to take like things like ibuprofen or things like that, ProEnz contains things like ginger, turmeric, boswellia, frankincense, and lemon bioflavonoids that are all naturally anti-inflammatory. Nice thing is it's all found in foods, so even has the same effect as anti-inflammatory things. There's no harm to your organs or your gut. It's just simply food. It's like you're eating Indian food and some things like that. Not harming your kidneys, not harming your gut, anything at all. Great stuff, okay? So make sure this is sticking here. Here's your first pop quiz. Which meal of these two would be the best one for promoting gut health? That one? Or that one? Who says A? Good. Who says B? Okay, good. That's right. If your plate looks like this, we're doing better. We're building immunity here. Here, we're actually making our immunity go wacky, okay? All right. Tip number 2, help you remember, pay attention and just follow the signs. If you can't remember what to eat, just follow the signs. All those places say do not enter, so don't go there, okay? One of my friends said if your primary cooks are a king and a clown and a girl named Wendy, you're probably in the wrong, you have the wrong chef staff there, all right? Hydration, so now we're getting to the water part of it. We want to try to reduce or eliminate soft drinks that contain high sugar levels. We said before, don't drink a lot of sugar. Well, a lot of things that are out there do have them. My goodness, if you take a look at a can of Coke, I think, what does it have? Like, they put maybe 10 tablespoons of sugar in there. That's a lot. It really is just, it's a very strong dose of things. And they actually did studies back as early as the 1970s that showed if you actually drank a soda, your immune system is suppressed and messed up for the next 5 hours. It's absolutely incredible. Keep your alcoholic beverages to a minimum too. Not saying you can't never have them, but just that, they do weaken your liver and things like that too. Your body's made up of roughly 66% water. So one thing is for sure is that nature's solution to any type of pollution is dilution. I learned that on a whitewater rafting trip when we were taught about what to do if you have to go to the bathroom when you're out there in the woods, okay? But it's also true of our bodies. So if you're actually not drinking enough water, well, that means that the toxins that you have, whether it be from the things you're drinking or whatever, or from your environment or these things, it's getting more concentrated. The best types of water I could recommend, Kangen is really good. They actually make the water that's actually very basic. There's ones that are high in things like, for example, like magnesium, potassium, that's good stuff. There's reverse osmosis water, and of course there's filtrated water too. All those things offer a lot of great things, and of course they're saying that water that comes in plastic bottles now is probably not the best for us because we're accumulating plastics. They estimate that we have the equivalent of a plastic spoon in all of our brains from the plastic we're drinking. Isn't that crazy? And they seem to have a real predilection for our sex organs too. So we want to make sure we're trying to not drink lots of plastic. That's going to be a real issue, I think, in the coming years. So pop quiz number 2, what should you do to drink most efficiently, dilute, and eliminate toxins? How about that group there? Doesn't sound very good, right? Or how about that? You said A, who says A? Good, who says B? Great, that's good, yes. Drink water too. And there's a kind of a thing they're learning now too that you want to try, if you can, drink some water that contains electrolytes too. In nature, if you're drinking from a stream or something like that, you're getting electrolytes in there from the runoff of over the rocks and stuff. So to just drink a pure water, especially if that's the only thing you're drinking, might actually dilute your good minerals. And so you want to find a good a hydration boost type thing, electrolyte complexes and so forth. Okay, so to be able to identify the healthiest type of dispenser before drinking contents, right? What is it going to be stored in? Do we want to drink it in this? No. Cake of beer, not so good, right? We have to get some type of good filtration. Here we have it. This is a fountain that actually is. And there's some ones out there that actually you can put into your sink that take care of a lot of that stuff. They'll take out all the bad stuff there too. Some really good ones. You can ask us about those. We'll talk to you about what the ones that we have heard and have used ourselves. This one here is a great one. How about exercise, oxygen, and just in boosting your environmental exposure to things? So, what I told you before is exercise makes your body work more efficiently in all systems, including your immune system. This is a great book by 2 PhDs. I find that the stuff that PhDs come up with, because they're not bound by big pharma, tends to be a lot more true, usable, and helpful for human beings. If it comes from somebody big, it comes from big pharma, take a look at that because there's probably something attached to it, like money. All right. The hygiene hypothesis is this, that we in a natural environment gives us controlled exposure to a broad spectrum of bacteria, viruses, pollens, molds, yeast, and irritants. When we're out doing stuff, and I know we have 2 people who would love to get out in their yard and do stuff. That's fantastic. And another one who does too. I know y'all like to get outside. That's great. I like to mow as well too. That's a good thing. You're getting it's almost like you're getting a small immunization to all these things throughout your day because you're working this stuff. It trains your immune system to detect, recognize, and create appropriate levels of antibodies to those antigens. You're treating it like a muscle. Like if you encounter a strong bacteria, you want to have a strong immune system. You need to have your white blood cells attack that thing and kill it right away. But if it's a pollen, it doesn't need to be. You don't need to react to it so strongly. Yes, you don't want it going into your lungs and sitting there, but it should be trapped in the mucus and you sneeze it out. That's basically what's supposed to happen. What they're finding out is that kids who are raised in hyper-clean environments have weaker immune systems than kids who are raised around the big 3 Ds, dirt, dust, and dander. This is the kid whose mom and dad are always like, oh, if their pacifier falls on the ground, it goes through the dishwasher and gets all cleaned up. Everything before the kid touches it gets wiped down with a Clorox wipe. Well, these kids never get exposed to any type of germs, and so guess what happens? The first time they go to kindergarten and around all these kids, they get sick. They haven't been able to be in their immune system. So there's actually good things about this. Kind of funny, I heard one of my good friends, he's gonna be talking here in the office sometime here soon. He's not a chiropractor, but he's an honorary one. He was given an honorary degree by a school because he gets chiropractic so well. He said that, all these kids, just developmentally, look how a kid grows. When they start to roll in their stomach and they start reaching out and grabbing stuff, they start putting it in their mouths. Part of it's to actually kind of help them develop their immunity. Part of it's also help them break their gums through too, right? So it's a good thing. He says, and don't worry, they'll all grow it. Kids get to a point in life where they realize, I don't pick up things on the ground and put in my mouth anymore. The girls outgrow it about age 2. The boys outgrow it. They'll usually stop putting things in their mouths about age 73, which I thought was hilarious, right? So there it is. So there it is. But the lack of environmental exposure leads to what are called the atopic illnesses like asthma and allergies. And we have seen some really cool immune oral therapy desensitization done by somebody that we know. Their child actually had the peanut allergy. He was the kid who couldn't go to the party because if they served peanut butter or peanuts, anything, he'd have an anaphylactic reaction. They would actually do the EpiPen, right? Well, what they did is they started going to this hospital in Kansas City. They started giving him low levels of peanut protein, just a little bit here and there to the point he wouldn't react to it. And he'd give him a little bit more. And over the course, I think, of about 2 or 3 years, he became fully functional around peanuts. Now, he said he didn't like peanut butter. It wasn't like a big thing for him. I think peanut butter is great. But anyway, for him, it's like, hey, look, I don't have to worry about going out in public anymore. So if you want to read the book, and This Dirt is Good by Jack Gilbert and Bob Knight, they talk about this whole thing about why getting your immunity exposed to lots of different things at the low levels throughout your life is good. In fact, they actually, I don't think they mentioned in this book, but do you know one of the biggest reasons that we tend to see shingles come back as seniors, right? Is that it used to be that we would live in multifamily type of things. So the grandparents would still be around the grandkids most of the time. So when the kids got chicken pox, the grandparents would be exposed to it again, and they just have a mild response and do it there too. But now we sequester them away in communities where all they're around is senior citizens who actually, are there, and then they bring the kids around, and guess what? Now that everybody's concerned that grandpa might break out in shingles because he hasn't been exposed to it on a yearly basis kind of thing. So he gets an overreaction, he gets the thing around the rib cage and all stuff like that too. So pop quiz number 3. Which activity here promotes more exercise and environmental adaptability? Using Purex and wiping down the hands all the time, or how about this one? Okay. We might have to take a shower after the number B, but that's the best one right there, right? Doing stuff like this is good for us, okay? So the tip here is environmental exposure for you and your family is a good thing. Get out in nature, enjoy it, and actually have a lot of fun. Here's them having a nice little mud fight. That looked pretty fun to me. All right? So the last one we'll talk about here, guys, is your nervous system. So your nervous system, again, is the thing that modulates and controls all these things. Gray's Anatomy, the actual textbook says, is the thing which controls, coordinates, and harmonizes everything your body does directly and indirectly. That means, when it says everything, that means everything. So your reaction to too much sun, your reaction to the spoiled food that you ate that caused you to vomit it up. When you go out and exercise hard, your heart rate speeds up, and then when you're done, it slows down. All those things are regulated by those nerves that are sending messages from your brain to your body, and then, of course, the body's telling the brain what's going on down there, and it can make adaptations accordingly. If the information is flowing fast and strong, any of these organs that those nerves go to are going to be in good shape. This nerve here, though, is struggling. There's a misalignment causing stress in that nerve. That's going to slow it down and make them less strong. It's like your body's struggling to hear what it needs to do now. Like the organ is not getting, okay, what am I supposed to do? And so it's functioning less well. That includes your immune system. The central nervous system is housed and protected by your spinal column. When you have normal spinal alignment, the brain, gut, all those different immune organs can communicate optimally and actually regulate things very well. Abnormal spinal alignment, though, causes a reduction of body communication, and so therefore subluxations do negatively affect alignment and communication. There's some amazing studies out there. I don't think I actually have them included here, but a study was done by National College of Chiropractic back around 1990, I believe it was, where they took pre and post blood work on people to see how strong their immune response was with their white blood cell activity. And then they actually checked them all for subluxations. If they found subluxations in their mid-back, they put them in 2 groups. Actually, there were 3 groups. One group only had like massage work done. They had like soft tissue work done. Another group, they came in and made the table pop up and down a few times, but they didn't do any type of correction at all. Then the last group actually did get adjusted. And what they did is all 3 groups, they took their post-procedure blood work 30 minutes later to see what happened. Believe it or not, just even having some soft tissue work done, actually boosted your immunity slightly, right? There's something healthy about touching people and embracing one another and hugging. They said like a 20-second hug can actually boost your immunity, so it's nicely. The group that actually had the table pop up and down, nothing happened. But those people who got adjusted were in like in a different planet. Their immunity was actually 30% stronger within 30 minutes. Pretty cool, right? Just because we took a nerve that was going like this and made it more like this, you would expect your body to respond accordingly and good, and it does. We've actually had a number of people who've come into us. They say, look, doc, I'm here because I'm kind of sick, I need to get adjusted. And they do, and we take them from this to this. They'll go home, the fever will shoot up to 104 for an hour, and then it's gone and they're done. They got over it right away. Super cool stuff like that. So, reduce your mental stress too. Most graduate schools now actually have a department in their school called psychoneuroimmunology. So if they're putting those three categories together, what does that tell you about the relationship of your mental state and your immunity? Do you think that stress just has no bearing on your immune function? When do people, I typically see our college students getting sick right after finals week, right? They've studied for a whole, 2 weeks, cramming in all those last minute papers in, getting 2 hours sleep a night. They take their last test, they let down, and guess what? Boom, they get sick and get hit. It's been observed that under people under extreme or unrelenting mental stress, they tend to develop illness, including allergies, autoimmune disorders, and infections. You need to be very aware and monitoring your mental stress levels and avoiding those things causing immune system dysfunction or crash. I'm going to ask my wife, Brenda, to come out here and give you guys the Holmes Race Stress Scale. If you want to take a look, it's a test that was developed back in the 1960s. And it actually allows us to look at the events that happened in your life in the last year. It actually has a predictive value for actually what your likelihood of getting sick or having a serious illness is, just based on the stress you've actually had. So we'll give that to you before you leave. You want to make sure you guard the space between your ears as well. Okay, there's lots of negativity out there. Usually the good stuff does not make the news. So if you're addicted to the news, you're probably addicted to some degree of low level of stress. You want to read things that are true, listen to things that are soothing, and so forth. And so regular exercise is known to be a stress reducer and enhancer. So that to me is really cool that, when you go out and exercise, you're building your immunosurveillance, you're boosting immunity, and you're also reducing your stress at the same time. It's like a triple win, isn't it? Right? Those people who are inactive, who are sedentary, I feel really bad for them because their stress is building, and they're not giving themselves a chance to get their immunity build up there too. So, pop quiz number 4, how do I get stressed? How do I reduce stress? Okay, that characterizes most of your day. I'm sorry for you. We need to have a little powwow with the family, how we need to get along and things like this. On the other hand, what if we do things more like this? Same family unit, but just doing something that's more positive in nature, getting out and enjoying it. And once again, we're out in nature at the home, very limited exposure to the outside stuff. Here we're going to being exposed to all the stuff that could help us build our immunity. There it is. So great stuff to do that sort of stuff too. So what should be part of everybody's stress management plan? How about taking care of it, right? We find that people actually are to regular chiropractic care. Typically, in fact, Medicare study on this showed that people in regular chiropractic care, at least once a month, see all doctors of all kinds less than half the people who aren't using chiropractic care. And I think part of that's because their bodies are just working better. They're just like literally, they're not getting sick as often. And so therefore, so taking care of your symptoms is very important. So here's your call to action, guys, is this. Number 1, do I now understand how I can better build my, can you find the Holmes Race Stress Scale for me?
I will after.
That's great, good, okay. What allergies and how they develop, okay? You got kind of the basic thing of it. You know that you want to be having limited exposure to things and not creating an environment where it gets overtaxed. Number 2, do I have any signs or symptoms that my immune system is struggling? Again, if I'm getting, every time the pollen count gets above a certain thing, am I getting sick or just laid out for 2 weeks there? We need to look into that. What's the cause of that? Number 3, do I want to be healthy, not just asymptomatic? It's one thing to take, Claritin or something else like that and just to be suppress those symptoms. But you know that when those drugs are out of your system, once the pollen count goes high, it's going to come back again. If I build my body better, I don't have to worry about that. Number 4, do I want a stronger immune system? Some people don't. Some people, it's going to be too much work. They want to look into the causes, they want to do things, that's okay. Just accept that you have to accept the results and go with that, right? If you do want a stronger immune system, you can do it. Do I understand what I need to do to make my immune system stronger? Okay, we just gave you a whole bunch of things in those 4 categories. Nutrition, hydration, oxygen or movement, and also your nervous system. Am I willing to do what's necessary to strengthen my immune system? This is the funny cartoon I always see that has this really serious meeting. It looks like it's in like the United Nations, and the guy says, "Who wants change?" And all the hands are up, and the guy says, "Who wants to change?" All hands go down like this, right? But that's going to be some work. I don't want to do that. Okay? And am I humble enough to ask for help where I need it? Guys, there's a lot of great stuff out there you can find on your own. I'm all for that. If you're a real DIY person, do it. But there's a reason why we make ourselves available for classes like this and also to meet with you one-on-one. And when appropriate, I can make a referral to you for people who can help you with those things. We love to do that sort of thing. But just be humble enough to ask for it, guys. There's no shame in that, okay? And then lastly, here's the big thing. Am I tenacious enough to follow through even if I make mistakes along the way? Some people just want to get it right the first time and do it perfectly. That's probably not going to happen. You might make a few mistakes along the way. But if you can learn from those things and start making better choices before long, you're doing most things right. And you actually have the opportunity then to have an occasional slip up, like this. Hey, if you would have pizza with soda once a week, have it. But if it's actually something you do every night, that's going to be an issue, right? So make sure we do things that get us where we want to go. So at the end, this is the beginning, guys. You do have this now. You have a lot of stuff I've given you, both the information and the tools how to do it. I want to make sure you know that we're available here for you to learn how to apply those things. And for those who are at home, please, once again, ask us for the system stress survey. And for the basics on controlling inflammation in your body, Innate Choice is one of the best lines that we have that helps reduce that. There's a real quick, simple quiz to find out if you're actually in need of those things too. And with that being said, guys, we're so excited. One last thing I want to say real quick. Next week we have a class we've never offered before. It's on the chummy effect. The chummy effect is actually about, it's two professors that we know who, when they would hear people say that they like to go to a certain place because it was nice or people were nice there, they wanted to know what they meant by that, so they kind of did a deep dive with those people and did research. If you're looking to maybe raise your game in terms of how you interact with people or your organization, a church, a school, wherever it may be, you want to come see this class because they're going to show you actually how to make a really top shelf place to be a top kind of person that people want to go and spend time with too. So thanks for being here through the internet and thanks for being here live.